Okay, welcome to an overview of how HTML and CSS work. So right now we've got this little split screen view and there's a bunch of code. Don't worry about the code. This doesn't really matter except to show you what's going on behind the scenes of ProTheme so that you can kind of begin to understand how things are going to work. So over here, here's our tiny theme, and you can see as we scroll through and change sizes, oh look, it's responsive and it is adapting to the different sizes, right? And you can do the same thing here, which is really nice. We're going to talk about how that works and help you understand what we're building. So the thing I want to talk about down here is this section. So here is our outline view. We got section 3. Let's name it my new section. This is literally so you can stay organized. You can label it whatever you want. You can leave it alone. It's just helpful for you to know visually, like, oh, I'm jumping into this section, right? And you can see that the little tag updates on the screen says my new section. So row 1, column 1, cool. You can give basically anything an arbitrary name. If we click into the magnifying glass, first thing I want to point out is this HTML tag. So div, which you've got section, article, aside, header, footer, figure, unordered list, ordered list, list element, anchor. Generally for sections, I'm just going to label them sections because that's what they are and that's good code, unless they're a header, in which case you should call them a header. So over here, this is my really, really simple website that is kind of running some of the same elements. So you can see it. We've got the header element in H1, a span with a class of subtitle with a link inside of it. And so over here, let me just show you the header background color, light gray. And so that's the header. And then the H1 and the span, H1 here, span here, link here, and that takes you to this builder. And then down here is the section. So let me just see. So what I'm doing is I am styling my sections with a language called CSS, which is cascading style sheets. Let's do background color red. That didn't work. All right, great. Well, oh, because it's not it's actually nth child 2. Aha, okay. Great. So let's talk about this. Okay, so you got a section inside of the section on the left here in this view. Section, div with a class X row, div with a class X column, and that's actually like when you look at this, that's how they're labeled, is X row, X column, and then a headline element. I'm a headline element. Hooray. And then I have another section down here with 1 row and 2 columns, so you can start to see that it's in a 2-column layout. And then down there at the bottom is the footer. So the main things you're going to want to take note of, I'm going to get rid of that red color because it's obnoxious. The main thing that you're going to want to take note of is how borders, paddings, and margins work together. So let's talk about borders. I am going to add a border to every column. It's going to be 2 pixels solid blue. And so that is the column. And so over here, if I add a border, so I clicked in on this headline, right? And I'm going to go up here to the column and go to design, turn on border, solid, 2 pixels, and blue, or blue enough, right? Boom, there it goes. So you can see how this is a visual representation of the actual code that we type to edit our websites, which is great. So there's that. And then let's turn on some padding. And padding is literally going to be the space between the actual thing and the box that it contains. That's just how websites work. So let's do padding, 20 pixels. Cool. And you can see now that there is the border. Inside of that is 20 pixels of space. But specifically, what I want to do is let's do padding top, 20 pixels. Padding left. Nope. Sorry. Padding right, 20 pixels. Padding bottom, 20 pixels. And padding left, 20 pixels. And you can see that that's actually the same thing. But you could change that. So we could do 10, 50, 30, and 200. And now it looks super wonky, right? But that's great because it means you have total control over that. So then again, in ProTheme, if you wanted to turn on some padding, right now we're using pixels. So I originally just wrote padding 20 pixels. So I linked all the sides and then put the 20 pixels and then boom, there it is. But if you want to make it different and make it look like this, then you can do 10, 50, 30, 200. And there you go. And it looks super weird and wonky. Or you can just set it back to this original padding where it's all linked together. And that's the same as writing padding 20 pixels. There we go. Great. So now let's talk about margin. So margin, we're going to go to the second thing. So this is going to go into two topics. It's margin and specificity. So margin, right now the columns all have a margin of 1em. So let's do border 2 pixels, solid red. Oh, right. I am a dummy. All right. Let's put a background color of light gray. That's on the column. Let's put it on the row. Okay. So now, actually, here we go. So this is the inspector view. And I think I'm going to show you this because it's just easier to understand. So here is our headline element, H2, right? X column. So right now we can see there's a green thing. The green represents the padding. So that's our 20 pixels of padding. And it also has a margin of 1em. M is a responsive unit, and responsive units are great because we want to build a responsive design. And then the X row is using this thing called flex, which we'll get into here in a second as well. So margin, as you can see, sits on the outside, and I'm actually going to set the border color back to blue so it has some more contrast and maybe you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so hopefully you can see the blue border. So margin is on the outside, then there's the border, then there's padding on the inside, and then there's the element. And so that's just something that you'll need to remember and think about as you're building web pages and designs and things, and how to position elements, how to space them out properly. Margin on the outside of the border, padding on the inside of the border. So CSS uses what we call a box model. So that's the box, and that's how you manipulate those things. And okay, let's talk about flex, because as you can see, you've got flex here. So if I go over here and go to justify content center, everything moves to the center. If I do space around, then it changes so that there is, essentially it's the same space on the left of the element, on the right of the element for both elements. So that's why the middle actually looks bigger, because it's twice as large. If I do space evenly, then all the spaces are the same. And space between is literally all the space goes in between based on the width of your container. So over here in ProTheme, we can turn on Flexbox. And that's not really going to do anything for us because there's only one thing. So let's create a new row, 2-column layout. And actually, I'm going to show you this with a second element inside of this column. Okay, so there's 3 elements inside of this column. I'm going to turn off the border of the column. Actually, no, let's leave that on. That's good. And on the headline, let's do this. Let's delete our headlines. Go to design, turn on, nope, just the border. We'll make it dotted, 2 pixels, and this gold color. That's not good. Red. Okay, so now we have our headline. Let's duplicate that. So now there's 3 headlines. And on the column, let's turn on Flexbox. Okay, so immediately you can see the width is reduced, which is standard operating procedure. And so this is a Flexbox direction, row versus column. Cool. You can have it wrap or not wrap. Horizontal, this is what I was talking about. So you could do center aligned, or you could do end, which would line them all up at the end. I think these probably all need to have some margin on them. So I'm just going to turn on 1M, 1M, one M. So then center looks like that, or end looks like that. If we set it to be a column, then if we can turn on stretch, so it goes the full width. And then vertical, I don't know that vertical is going to do anything. So let's make the column bigger. Say the height is 600 pixels. Okay. So now that we see our column, we can set to start, center. So you get it. So that's how to position things inside of things. And Flexbox exists a lot of places. So there's space between, space around, space evenly. So those are the main design elements. Size, the main design elements. Padding, border, border radius, which I think you saw me edit, but I'm gonna set 20 pixels. And you can now see that this square is rounded, so you can set it to like 2000 pixels, and it's basically as much of a circle as it can be. You can set box shadow, which I have a drop shadow color, so let's just do something small like 2 pixels, 4 pixels, 4 pixels, 2 pixels, and now there's that box shadow there on the side. And you can even do it to where it's, I'm going to hit this button, transparent, and then on the interaction, drop shadow. So now when I hover, it adds the box shadow. And that's mostly how to edit stuff in Cornerstone, especially as you're starting with templates and things. Like realistically, that's just how to think through that. So start with a template, okay, you can click on split, and it's going to install something. Great, click on the image, pick your image. Oh, there's actually another good point. So this is a big long image. Once it gets loaded in, it's also a huge image. So that says fill, and I wonder if we set it to cover. Oh, I know. Say you want to have a background, like on your header. So background color. Okay, great. There's a background color. What if you want to do something cool, like a picture? So then background layer, turn on advanced, and it shows us background layers. And you can do background image. Great. Then add a picture. We'll load this guy in and we'll make him small. Okay. So that looks terrible. I'll make this white just so that you can kind of see the text against things. Okay, white and white. Okay. So say I really wanted to highlight that nothing to fear thing up here. You got image position. You can put top. So there's that. Or you can use a percentage. So like center is the x-axis and then maybe like 20% for the y-axis, or 10%, or 80% if you wanted the bottom. You could do 20% on the left if if it was large enough that it would actually move things to the left and the right, but you can't really see that. And then you can actually change this from cover to contain. And now I think what you'll see, is it's starting to move around and do lots of weird stuff. So that's how you have control over those background images. Cover and contain, and you'll see that reflected in the image itself. Cover, contain, fill, none, scale down. So so those are the main elements. A button here is pretty similar to a headline, except the text is down here. You could have secondary text if you want. It's great. I don't know why I would say that, but yep. And that's pretty much it. That should be a fair amount to get you started. Oh, and if you ever get an embed widget, say you want to drop a form into your website, which is pretty common, then instead of like an image element and a headline element, maybe you will want raw content, and then you can just type in some HTML there. Just say H1. Hi there. And there's some actual code. So that is it for this tutorial. Hope that it was informative. Obviously not the most exciting thing, but still a good thing to know. Thanks for watching. The end.